it's so hot, by the way. The fucking air. We had somebody come in to check out the air conditioner to just like do maintenance on it and make sure that it's working well, because like because it's like hot all the time and the air is bad in California, and so it's like, hey, let's just have a routine check-in. And then like 2 days later the air conditioner broke. It's like, all right, well, that's fucking suspicious.
What? That is very suspicious.
What did you do, sir? Can't help but wonder.
I would call a different person to come fix that problem.
And if you didn't do anything, why didn't you spot that it was gonna break 2 days after?
It broke. But like now, today it's so hot. It's like, oh, just gonna cook in this room all day.
Come to Portugal. We have cakes.
It's okay.
We have cakes here. That's not really the selling point. You think
we had the
but it's also cool.
Was it? I forget what it was called. The polar.
Vortex.
Yeah, polar vortex. See that?
No.
What?
Oh, there was a
no.
So there was there's a news article that came out saying like the polar vortex up north of us, of North America at least, is about to unleash basically just like this year's winter is going to be devastatingly cold.
Like New York's going to get obliterated again.
Yes, New York's going to be like destroyed. Texas is going to be destroyed. No, it's going to be worse than that. This is the every 4 years winter is bad in the North America thing, or at least so California has like the wettest. We have the wettest winters every 4 years.
There is just no answer of where to move to.
Yes,
it's all wrong answers.
You need to move to
Portugal,
an island.
An island, so that it can be wiped off the map a year later.
Yes.
Womp womp. But yeah, that was our routine check-in with AAA gaming. As usual, not particularly encouraging as a general concept.
I think it was half and half.
It's like okay. I mean, half and half. Half of it was new games.
Yeah, that's why I'm saying like. The good half was the new games. The bad half was the not good games.
I mean, a lot of the new games looked bad.
Some of them.
Tom Clancy's Rudy Tooty Remnant crossover.
Or Ghostwire.
Ghostwire.
Yeah, that one didn't look very promising.
That game's gonna have
Deathloop is looking
memorable name problems.
Mm-hmm.
Apparently, Deathloop has like advertising problems where a lot of people thought that it was a multiplayer game. And even I thought that you played as the lady, so there was a lot of this trailer brought surprises to people all around. A lot of people thought it was either a co-op game or a competitive game.
I wonder if people confused it with the other Arcane game that they're making.
What are they making?
The multiplayer one. It's called Redfall. Yeah, it doesn't help that it's called, 2 words put together.
I mean, that's just what names are apparently. But yeah, like they're remarkably unmemorable. Just like how we continually are struggling to remember the name of the game that had the scissors lady.
Yeah.
Something wire. It's the wire.
It's the Ghost Wire, I think.
Ghost Wire the Whip.
It looked a little bit kind of pants, but it could be good. You never know.
Yeah, I was interested in the monsters. I guess both the Bayonetta looking game and Ghostwire both had like, monsters that I want to see more of. What's their deal?
Nier Automata too.
It's easy to get me in on that. Just show me a bunch of monsters and I'll be like, what's that thing's deal? I want to see what's up with that guy. I want to see it move around and do things. It's like a selling point for me. But yeah, it's like a first person power shooter, so it might not be very interesting ultimately. But I almost forgot about the Bayonetta game. Right. The Bayonetta game might be okay if it at least his boss fights looked okay. That was it's really sad when they showed that weird hallway segment in like the subway where she's just like button mashing on like one enemy in really boring fashion. It's like, don't put that part in the game. It sounds like that part's bad. Delete that level. Don't. If that's all of the gameplay between the boss fights, then make it a boss rush, because don't waste my time. Because yeah, you watch Bayonetta and Devil May Cry footage, and it's not like that. Where you're just like, I'm slowly whacking away at a guy in a hallway, and we're just standing here with our feet on the ground.
I don't know. I never played Bayonetta.
There's no pull my devil trigger there. I mean, the Devil May Cry 5 combat was so fucking over the top and ridiculous, and also just draining, that there was entire chunks of the playthrough where I couldn't talk during combat because every single part of my brain was like firing at once. Like I was having some kind of like aneurysm or something, or whatever it's called, because it was like an actual, like, it was kind of a nightmare. But it was I think specifically Dante at this point has such a bloated moveset that he's like incredibly difficult to control when you're trying, because a core mechanic of Devil May Cry is that it has the Tony Hawk combo system, which means every time you do the same moves, they're worth less, and you're also trying to continually combo all the time. So basically, half the fights are a test of how much of the overall moveset you can do in one fight. Like, you're trying to not repeat the same moves and go down all these different paths and use all your different powers. And Dante in particular has like 4 stances and 4 weapons. And so it's just, it's too much for me. But then Nero is such a comfortable character for me to play, because he's just a hack and slash dude that has a decent number of tricks with like the gun juggling and the air moves and all that and the dashes. But then he has specifically his gimmick is he has an extendo arm, like Gum Gum, like a Luffy from One Piece thing, where he extends his arm and he can grab people and pull them to him so he can continue his combos. It's just like, it's a lot like Tony Hawk, actually, where like every sequel of Tony Hawk was like, now we added reverts, which means that when you go to when you land in a half pipe, if you revert, then that can combo up to the other side of the half pipe and continue your combo. Now we added spine transfers and manuals and all that other stuff. Like, you just kept every sequel for a while, and Tony Hawk had one new mechanic that would help extend your combos in a new way. And like Nero is just that design philosophy, but for Devil May Cry. We're like, we made a new Dante, and this Dante has an extendo arm that lets him pull people to him or pull himself to things, which partly lets him do some platforming nonsense that's not that interesting, but also lets him do like, there's a gap between you and the enemy, continue that combo by bringing him to you, or if he's a big guy, bring yourself to him, and so you can like do interesting stuff with that. And so like he's just fucking chef's kiss, like such a great character to play. But then they added a character called V, and he also breaks my brain because he's a summoner. He summons like 3 different demons, and each of your face buttons on your controller does combos for each of the 3 separate demons. So you memorize button rhythm pressing sequences to control all 3 of the demons simultaneously. Meanwhile, you're just walking around with the joysticks, and you're like watching the fight from a distance, and you can do stuff like sit there and like read a book or play music and shit like that, and like do like these charge up things that kind of make the thing go better, like a bard almost. But all of the face buttons are you controlling the demons independently of each other and using them to clear up the fight. And it's like, it's so fucking weird that it's hard to even explain how it controlled. But I knew that it was like deeply overwhelming to try to let's play on top of, because it was a thing I'd never done before in a game, basically, is try to control anything that way.
Yeah, that sounds like a nightmare, honestly. Controlling multiple things at the same time, it's difficult at the best of times.
But that's where the genre is at. So you show me some lady slowly hacking at a tentacle monster in a hallway, and I'm like, is this like in the Remnant verse? Is this a remnant from the ashes? Is this a loot grinder? The moment you show me that, I'm like,
was good.
I'm really worried about why a game included that. Yeah, the getting launched out of the Dead Space satellite and seeing a Cthulhu on the entire building was cool, and it makes me wonder how that stuff will turn out. And I'm amused by that world seemingly having a fascination with everyone being a biological chainsaw. Which is just
it does that a lot, doesn't it?
Yeah, there was several biological chainsaw monsters, and also monsters that have like a hole going through their heads, which I guess is like the inside of the ring of the chainsaw. And it's like, why? What the fuck? Why? I guess the consistency does a good job at suggesting the idea that there's like a continuation, like a continual evolution in this universe. Like the monsters have continuity from one to another, which makes them believable as being in the same universe.
It does smack me as just sort of like a personal preference from the artists, because chainsaws aren't even they're anybody that has ever operated a chainsaw knows that they're terrible at cutting things. They're astronomically difficult to operate if you don't know what they're doing, and they snag up on everything. Like the whole trope of somebody
it's a lot of wear
coming
and
up to
tear
you.
for an organism to have too.
Oh, yeah, that too. But like, if somebody comes at you with a chainsaw, if they hit you in the clothes, you're probably gonna be fine. Like you're gonna need to get out of the way because that thing's gonna hit you.
It's very much a movie weapon.
Yeah.
That doesn't really reflect like its usefulness.
So it's just like an artistic thing.
Yeah, no, it's one of those full on.
respect.
It's a silly thing,
Mhm,
which is like
yeah.
that's the type of thing that makes me think, oh yeah, it is going to be a fun character action game, because character action games are fucking stupid. Like Nero and his extendo arm. What I forgot to mention is that fucking Nero has a motorcycle sword.
What?
His sword, the handle twists like the throttle of a motorcycle, and it shifts gears. He has gears.
But that's not what the throttle of a motorcycle does.
And I can't even tell you what it actually does realistically. All I know is it makes his sword swordier somehow, and like it like starts flaming and shit, and it makes motorcycle noises, and it's very satisfying. But it's incomprehensible, and I love Nero so much. I love him more than Dante. I don't give a shit.
I mean, it does sound good to have a sword, and then you're like, wing, wing. That is pretty good.
I know people will be like,
gears...
it's Raiden. It's the Raiden of Devil May Cry, but I like Nero so much more than Dante.
Wow,
He's great.
hot takes only on this
I love
podcast.
Him. I was a bit amused by the fact that they did a reboot of Devil May Cry that people got very angry about, and it was mostly for the. I think especially if you look back at it now, after having a fucking outrage cycle every month for video games, you're like, that was probably really stupid, wasn't it? That was probably a really mostly pointless outrage that was perpetuated by frustrating, irritating people, and it's like, oh man, the combo system might be slightly different, or they slightly changed the appearance of the character. There's like a little bit of a fuck you in Devil May Cry 5 that I noticed, which is that they went back to the original Dante design, and it's like a direct sequel to the previous games, as opposed to being a reboot like the reboot was. But now Nero looks like Devil May Cry, like the reboot Dante. Like they gave him a haircut and also basically the personality of the Devil May Cry reboot, DMC Devil May Cry Dante. So it's like, haha, he's still here. He just has white hair now. So he's here to stay, and you can't get rid of him.
Yeah.
It also doesn't break character though, because he was like the slightly, he's like the arm's reach sort of slightly edgy but totally a heart of gold anime protagonist in the previous game, and then everything about the world around him was a lie and bad. So by the time you see him again, it makes sense that he'd be acting like that brooding douchebag by then, because that's that arc.
Are you sure it's totally a heart of gold, or is it just people not holding him accountable? Because that happens a lot.
Well, he doesn't do that much wrong. He's just like, he's in Devil May Cry 4, he's mostly just kind of edgy, like he's just kind of rude. But he's actually like, but he's the one that's going out of his way to like save a bunch of people, and like when the crises started happening and everything. So he was just kind of a dick, but it wasn't actually up to anything bad specifically. And if anything, part of why he was a dick was because the church would be after him, because he has a demon arm, and the church is well, about as well presented. It's about the usual evil Christian church that you're used to seeing in most Japanese games, that to have that vague Final Fantasy thing that's like, this looks like a lot like Christianity, but we're not going to call it that, but it sure seems a lot like it. Anyway, final boss is a pope. Go kill him. I do like Devil May Cry as a franchise a lot.
That Rats game was secretly a Final Fantasy game.
Even though I'm a weirdo that just plays them once. The real fans play Devil May Cry games like 6 times, and you keep going up through the difficulties one by one. And
why
then
would you play it more than once though? It's not. Is it a looter game?
That's a very good question.
No, there's a level up system, but it's just like you just buy all of his moves, and it only takes like a playthrough or two to fully flesh that out. But no, it's just the escalating difficulties. The final difficulty levels involve you having to beat the entire mission without getting hit because you die in one hit. And it's all about getting those S ranks. So you do the Tony Hawk comboing where you're trying to like get your the best possible scores for every fight throughout the entire mission, but also getting so good at the game eventually that you can just beat the entire mission without taking a single hit at all. They show every single like in Devil May Cry 4 specifically, they show all the levels as a vertical list that you can, in a mission select screen, and then the difficulties are shown left or right, so you can see the letter grade you have on every level on every difficulty, and you just try to turn the entire grid into S's.
Why? I get
because they're obsessive enough.
That's not my.
I'll play like one difficulty higher than standard and be like, that was fun. Bye.
Do you know why there's so many games with S ranking and like A, B, C, D, E, and then an S at the top?
Something Japanese that they do.
It's their school system is like that.
Wait, are there S ranks? Are there S ranks in Japanese schools?
Yes, absolutely.
I did not know that.
And there's S stars as well. And
it's like S ranks.
Yeah, like the reason why video games have
an S
A, B, C,
grade in
because of school.
Japan.
Yeah, you can. So basically, it's really weird because you start to think, wait a minute. So Dark Souls has all these rankings and all that, and it's school. It's just school. It's what you do in school. Oh, my Ichi Katana is a S dexterity, and it's school.
Oh,
I looked it up a few
can you
weeks
get
ago.
S? I don't remember. Can you get S rank on Dark Souls weapons?
Oh yeah, you can. Yeah,
you can tell how loud I am these days. Like,
I can tell you one.
It's like
a
channel-defining franchise for me. But like part of the reason I'm doing this like 10-year anniversary replay of the franchise is because like I am so out of the loop. I used to have it like memorized. Like, oh yeah, here's how like every Souls game has a different upgrade system, and here's how this one works, and here's how that one works, and here's how death works in this game, because like in this one it makes your health bar longer, and here this one it makes it shorter, and like I don't remember shit anymore.
You forgetting the upgrade system, I think, is fair. I've been watching your Dark Souls 2 Scholar of the First Sin and your Dark Souls 1 original Let's Plays. I watched those two recently, and you forgetting how the upgrade systems work, I think it's totally fine. Something that surprises me about you though is that you forget like where the bonfires are, and I think like I don't know, it's just the way I play. I suppose I always remember the bonfires. For me, which
bonfires?
Remember.
I know where a lot of them are.
Like for you the one in Lost Izalith, you didn't know there was a bonfire down there. And you thought the other bonfires that go down into Lost Izalith were in a different place. At least, well, I mean, it's
Lost
been
Izalith
6 or 7 years.
is Dragon Buttland, isn't it?
Yeah.
Dragon Buttland's weird because you like skip it a bunch.
Yeah, I never did though. I always, I only
like
beat the game
in some of my
times.
playthroughs I skip it, and in some of my playthroughs I just didn't happen to know that there was like. Because like in some of these places, there's like relatively hidden bonfires, and like in Lost Izalith, it's
that one is behind a secret.
Yeah,
the one in Lost Izalith is a secret.
There's some that are hidden behind illusory walls, and I think there's one that's hidden inside of a tower that you have to climb up inside of, but you don't have to actually go in it. And it's like, because it's just a bunch of buildings, it doesn't even necessarily look like something that you'd be able to go inside of. So you're trying to get through all the lava and get this over with. And
it's just a better run for the Bed of Chaos. That's the only benefit.
Yeah. Exactly. And there's I think another one that I would lose track of sometimes was the Sunken King DLC, when you fight Nishandra and the dragon Sin. You have to do this really, 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 really long falling sequence where you keep dropping down all these various things to this big descent to the final 2 bosses that are back to back.
Oh, that one, yes.
And like somewhere like halfway through or near the end of that drop sequence, there's a really missable bonfire. That means you don't have to constantly start it over. But I
know, yeah.
When I did my big like multi-day spree of trying to beat Nishandra because I couldn't, the then or Eliza or Elise. I think Nashandra's the real boss fight. That's
it's
the same character model
that summons other people. Yeah.
Yeah, they summon skeletons and Valstott and a bunch of other stuff. I kept having to do the entire drop every single time. There's another one. I think Seath the Scaleless, like right before the boss chamber, you can turn left and kind of back, and there's like a bonfire, I think, maybe. And if you don't get that, you have to redo the entire Crystal Cave every attempt on the boss.
Oh yeah, there's that one as well. You never showed it on camera, so yeah, I assume you also forgot about that one.
I mean, sometimes it's not forget. Sometimes I just never discover them in the first place.
You never discover it, yeah.
Some of these boss fights, some of these bonfires are really important, but entirely missable.
I mean, I have bonfires like that. The one in the Gulch in Dark Souls 2, there's two bonfires in the Gulch, and I only knew the first one, and I had the worst trouble with that level because I kept getting poisoned and killed, and so it was super frustrating.
To replay the entire Black Gulch over and over again.
It was so frustrating.
It's like all those it's like wasn't it like tentacle monsters or something?
Yeah, there's the ones that come out of the
holes.
Tars, yeah, and then there's the big ones that come out of the floor. No, there's the ones that come out of the holes on the wall, but then there's the ones that come out of the puddles of whatever that is on the floor, and then there's people that show up to kill you, like even if you're not effigied up in that game.
Because that one has like NPC attackers.
Yeah, it's just such a terrible level. I hated it.
I think I remember one of the bonfires being technically there, but you can't like get to the boss fight from it because it's the underground area full of giants.
I don't know that there's a bonfire down there. I know that area, but the other bonfire is to the right. It's like hidden, like right next to a ravine, and you need to go hug the right wall just before the boss, and it's like goes up, and there's like somebody in there, but you kill them and you get the bonfire.
There's a decent amount of like completely missable bonfires in those games, and I think that's just on purpose.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Like even Dark Souls 1 has the one in the Darkroot Garden is behind a secret wall, right next to a wall that you can't open unless you pay 20,000 souls in a trader elsewhere.
Oh yeah, you turn left and hit the wall, and it opens up to a bonfire. That's really helpful. Yeah, that one's usually announced by a bunch of signs on the ground.
Oh yeah.
But no, I was thinking of the one about Darkroot Basin, where on the way to the Hydra, where you go down the descending ramps, and you get to a bonfire that also links to the Valley of Drakes.
Mm-hmm. That's a very good one because it connects to a lot of things and well into late game.
And it's completely missable, like usual. Sometimes it just feels like they're fucking with you.
Regarding the S ranks, the scimitar, you put the sharp gem on it, and you upgrade it to level 4 or 5. You're already at S rank on dexterity. The scimitar is amazing. In Dark Souls 3. I'm talking Dark Souls 3.
My favorite part is arguing with the comments about how to pronounce it.
No, so you have problems with the falchion, not with the scimitar. You know scimitar.
The falcoin.
The falcoin, that's the one, yeah.
The falchion.
Today I heard somebody say machismo. Is it normal for people to say machismo? Yeah. No. I'm like, is that a machin?
No, the falcoin is a debatable like weapon pronunciation that people don't agree on, but machismo is not an existing pronunciation of anything.
That is definitely, yeah. I understand people
I've run into this in one of my essays where there's a thing that really fucked with me when I was watching Beastars, and Legoshi said something really weird, and I'm like, that's a weird plot development. I wonder how that's going to come up with. And then the season ended and it never came up again. I'm like, why didn't he ever follow up on that weird thing he said? I thought they were like setting something up, and then they just like forgot they set it up. What's up with that? And so I had to check in, and I had to check the subtitles to figure out what the fuck he was saying, because he says he's a member of the Kennedy family, and I'm like, excuse me,
what
the fuck does that mean in universe? But he means he's a wolf. Like Canidae, like Canadae. They pronounce it in Beastars in the English dub Kennedy. And what additionally muddied the waters is that I tried turning subtitles on, but if you watch a Netflix show dubbed and then turn on the subtitles are for the Japanese version. So they don't match the dub. Like there should be 2 English subtitles. You should be able to have subtitles for the dub
closed
just because
captions and
just the way, because people normally have.
Oh, that's really bad.
You can have subtitles on anything normally, but the moment it's an anime, you can only have the subtitles for the Japanese dub. So you'll have the English translation of the Japanese dub, but the if I remember correctly, what happened is the Japanese dub doesn't say Canada. They say a different word entirely, so it doesn't help to turn on the subtitles to figure out what he's saying. So I had to figure things out, and I found at least one. I found at least one Reddit post where somebody else was asking about him being a member of the Kennedy family. So at least one other person was confused about.
Some people thought of it. Yeah. For clarity, it's pronounced Kanide or Kanidaye, depending on whether you're using.
I went down this rabbit hole, and there are a lot of results that just say Kennedy. So it's like,
a weird word.
It's like the Falchion again, where there's like 4 competing pronunciations, and none of them have one. So it's just a fight.
It's a Latin. It's not English. It's not an English word. It's Latin because it's like a science. Yeah, but then because there's like things like modus operandi, which is an English word. It's not Latin. It comes from Latin, sure, but it's an English word, and so it's pronounced modus operandi. That's how it's pronounced, right? Yeah, instead of modus operandi, which would be correct, more close to what Latin was. But Canidai or Canide. That is a weird word. It's
a really weird word, and I just defaulted making the A sound more A-E. But yeah, the anime pronounces it Kennedy, and I'm like, what?
Why didn't you follow up on that?
Because you just gotta think back, like just hearing that out of context, that he's a member of the Kennedy family. Like, just think about what that sounds like from like.
I can't believe you spent the whole season. He spent the whole season with that in the back of my mind, is like looking at all the plots that would come up. But he's the Kennedy. He's a Kennedy.
Yeah, I think at one point I just kind of forgot about it, but then but it was like a question that lingered for a while and then never got followed up again. But then I watched the season again, and it's like, he said the thing again. What the fuck? Like, that never came up again. Why did they set that up? It's a weird thing to establish that he's a member of the Kennedy family. Guy's fucking loaded.
And he's not even a fox. He's a wolf. Of course he's a canid. Like, why would they? I suppose that might be.
But there's other shit going on, like how in Beastar's old house. I'm gonna. There's like a rant that I'm writing about this somewhere, but
in one of the folders,
just a bunch of nonsense that I'm just getting into because it's fun. Well, there's like weird shit to get into, like the fact that like dogs only exist because of humans, but there's dogs in this universe. It's like, what does that mean? It's like, actually the show does have answers, and no, the show doesn't get answers. The show skips that entire arc, but the book has answers. But also they're supposed to be in houses that are based on what family they're in, and their dorm is a wolf, 2 dogs, a coyote, a fennec fox, and a hyena.
That's the hyena is not.
See the problem?
How did you pronounce that? Hyena?
It's a hyena.
You didn't say that. You said he said hyena.
You hesitated a little bit. I think he said it, but
it's a hyena. And this is one of these things is not like the others.
Yes, like the others.
All of those all of those are members of the Kennedy family. And then there's a hyena, which is not. A hyena is not a member of the Kennedy family. Like, they're from Family Hyena Day. It's a whole separate one.
And
that's where aardwolves are from, which is also a confusing thing because it's called a wolf and it's not a wolf. But we're bad at naming things. That's why we called a red panda what it is.
They're the weirdest. The aardwolves are the weirdest animal. And Feliformia.
I have this headcanon because the hyena has very bad eyesight, so I just like to think that he doesn't realize that he's not in a hyena house.
That's funny. Oh, they're closer related to the suricatas than meerkats that they're called. They're closely related to the meerkats rather than wolves. Hyenas are.
Oh yeah, like sometimes people will be like, hyenas are like more like cats than dogs. It's like, that's like saying like an alligator is more like a shark than a ape or something. It's like, they're so fucking different that they stop trying to categorize things as being closer or whatever.
It's
But yeah,
it's
like
true.
there's like a
order.
but like there's like a vague like convergent evolution thing going on that makes hyenas kind of look like wolves and stuff, but it does not stand up to scrutiny. Like from
No.
afar, you're like, that looks like a dog or whatever, but then they get you see them behave and or like what they're shaped like and how they, and other stuff, and it's like they're so different from anything in the wolf family.
Yeah.
They're weird.
I mean, yeah, it's the uncanny valley of you thinking it's a cat, but then
And that's
it's
without getting into
eyes.
the absolute fucking horror that is hyena birth. It's just
Oh no!
the worst stuff to learn about.
What Wikipedia hole did you get yourself into?
I mean, I've like re-encountered this multiple times at this point because it just comes up in random nature shit. Because the female hyena has a pseudopenis that they have to give birth through, and not only is this horribly scarring and immediately permanently damaging the first time it happens, but like 60% of hyenas die in the process of being born.
Crap.
So it's bad for the mom and the baby, but for some reason evolution did it. I don't. Evolution's just a cruel thing sometimes, and just
Aren't hyenas like
mistakes.
aren't they really well adapted to, like they're really well adapted to the savannah? Like they're some of the best, most resilient animals. Basically, that might sort of compensate on the survival.
They seem to do well.
Chart.
It's just you just can't help but wonder, like, why would anything be this bad at giving birth? Why is this like this? What
Well,
cruel
humans aren't
fate.
much better either. It's just that the hyenas don't have healthcare and stuff, so just 60% of the babies die.
What a bummer.
What? I
Yeah,
mean,
I'm just saying that
50%
humans-
of panda babies die because their mothers just squish them. So, I mean, and pandas are like constantly monitored. So imagine how bad that is.
yeah.
There's a lot of stuff
I'm
that
just
are-
saying,
where it's
like
just
humans are
why,
also
why did
pretty bad
anything end up like this? Like the was it octopuses? Don't they grow like? I think they lay like 10,000 eggs, and like if they're lucky, like 2 of them might survive to adulthood. But then even then, like an octopus only lives for like 6 months.
Do they live for only that long?
Yeah, they're
No.
incredibly short-lived, but they have
Really?
like they have like
Huh.
they're like smarter than dogs. Like they're like
Yeah.
one of the smarter organisms out there, and they
Yeah.
they die so fast. They have such a short lifespan. Everything about
There
that's
is.
cruel.
Oh, it's some
And like
species
octopus
as
mothers
little.
like will like lay a clutch of eggs, and then they just fucking lay on the eggs for like months. Like a huge percentage of their lifespan is spent just laying on their own eggs, protecting them from people, from predators going after them, and then they just starve to death on top of their own eggs.
Hmm.
And then that's the lifespan of the intelligent octopus. It's like,
That's
fuck, nature, stop.
that's some Dark Souls
Why?
shit right there.
Please stop. This
And
is-
also, octopuses
everything
have
outside of
beaks.
your house is horrifying and bad, and you should stay indoors forever.
Octopuses have beaks, which is something that I can't really understand, even though I've seen the
Yeah.
diagrams. And that's actually the beaks of the octopuses are the limitation of their movement. Every
Yeah.
other part of their body,
It's
they'll
the
go
largest
anywhere.
part of their body that
Yeah,
can't
the
like
beak
just
is-
squeeze through everything.
It's just, and it hurts apparently. Like the injuries that octopus make are just basically the beak
Yeah, they can just
just
bite you.
digging into you.
But yeah, they can fit to like any size thing basically, because the only like hard object is the beak. And they're smart. Like they are
They are super curious, yeah.
The octopus will like watch like scientists or zookeepers or whatever, and like they'll figure out how to open their own cages by watching. Like they're
Yep.
relatively smart and dexterous and all that. And they just live incredibly short lives, and it's depressing, and most of that life is suffering.
It's between 6 months and 2 years, according to Wikipedia.
Nature bad.
Nature stop. No more
Nature
hyenas
really
or
bad.
octopus.
Do not
No,
look
wait,
up
fix-
any hyena diagrams. You will not be happy.
No, it's better not to.
Why you gotta do this, nature? Guess you
I-
could just
I
say
don't
it's
know,
in
they
their
just have-
nature.
They just have different priorities, I think, in life. We see things from the perspective of a mammal that has chairs and television. Octopuses don't
and
have
video
that.
games to complain about for 40 minutes.
Yeah.
I think animals just live in a very different cycle
Yeah.
than humans need
They-
to.
they-
Like their life is just about procreation and dying, and
They
ours is
never-
about prolongtivity.
That's why it's so
longevity of our
frustrating
lives.
whenever like weird manosphere groups like talk about humanity in those terms. It's like, what, you want to go back? The fuck? What's wrong
Yes.
with you?
Go
wanna
back
go-
to monk.
Want to go back to dying young and just like living to rut?
Yes. Have you not
Well,
seen
yeah, because the
gestures
idea
all
is that
around?
like, I mean, the idea is that the longer that people live, the less value they contribute to society, because then they require more out of society, but also don't give anything in return the older they get. So it's just like they become this dead weight as time goes by. And so if you go back to a time when everyone
don't
died
think
in their
that's-
like 30s, then no one gets to live long enough to be a burden to society. But
Well,
ironically, the people who think that
people-
they're a burden are the people who think the young ones are. So like,
Well, it's
But
even
that's
like,
like-
the very concept of being a burden is also just like, it's the capitalistic interpretation
yeah,
where it's like, how
that's
can I
all- yeah.
extract value from people as a corporation or whatever? And it's like,
Not only that,
anyone that's not outside of that is pointless.
Not only that, it's also largely dependent on child labor, because if for that to work, for people to die at 30 or 40, which they didn't. I mean, a lot of people died a lot. Like life expectancy was low because a lot of people died when they were 15 rather than 30.
It's a math error where
Yeah,
when people talk about average lifespan, they think about in terms of like, if you're alive enough, like at an age to think about being alive and so on, how long are they going to survive for? But if you average all human lives, including all the people that die in their first year, then that really fucks up the math, and that's usually not what people are thinking about.
it's
Like life expectancy is consistently getting better each year, or was at least, but
except in the US.
but it was so much. It wasn't nearly as worse as people think it was. It
'Cause the
just
thing is-
significantly improved at infant death.
Yeah, that too. But the thing is, like, if your average life expectancy is, let's say, 80, then most people will die at about 85, 89, or between 85 and 90. And that doesn't make, like, if I tell you like this, that doesn't make sense. Most people will die at 80. But no, that's not how average works. It's when I say most people, you're talking about the median. No, actually, no, you were not even talking about the median. It could be if you were like a perfect, like that it's not a Venn diagram, but like imagine if you divide every death by year, and let's say 100 years, nobody dies after 100. So basically, you get to 100, you die. Let's think about it like that. And if you think like most of the deaths happen when you're 86, then you can say that most people die when they're 86, right? Because that's the most frequent year of death. But with that most frequent year of death, the life expectancy, the average, is going to be lower than that always, because there's just so many years before that for all the rest of the people to die. This is very morbid to talk about, but but what I mean to say is that average life expectancy is very deceiving to think
We're
about.
gonna get flagged as not being advertiser friendly again.
No, I'm gonna get flagged. You just gonna get scot free.
No, I have a that thing I tweeted about where I was in trouble for like not reviewing my videos correctly was the fucking like, do dogs have personalities episode, was being like, this, we've decided this is not advertiser friendly, and whoops, looks like you've made mistakes in your ratings, we're gonna punish you, and it's all phrased like that. And then I'm like,
That was really
all right,
weird.
can a real person look at this? And they're like, oh yeah, this is advertiser friendly.
No.
Well,
I
that whole time
edited-
it was saying that 4 videos are bad, but it was only showing me 1, and I was like, what the fuck? But after like 4 days of that, it finally showed me the other 3, and there were like 3 of the other recent episodes of this podcast. They're all this podcast.
Oh no.
These are my
That's
most
me.
advertiser unfriendly videos, the ones that have no video content. They're just people talking, and that's somehow worse than like the ones where I'm dismembering people.
I don't think YouTube has, like, even when they say that somebody reviews it, I don't think they review it. They look at the score and say they review the score. They don't review the
I think
video.
it's just a second, more expensive bot looks at it.
Yeah,
that
probably.
can't process
The
stuff
fancier
as
bot.
fast.
I'm playing through The Witcher 2 right now, and I decided to edit the sex scenes in a more less in a less explicit way. So I just basically zoomed in and cropped out the image in certain ways. That doesn't change any of the action, but doesn't show nipples or ass, which is the extent of the sex scenes in The Witcher. And I got the yellow little check mark saying it wasn't fit for all advertisers, and I was like, no, please review that manually. And they said, yes, it is not fit. So now the next sex scene is just going to be tits and ass forever. I'm going to zoom in on the tits.
It's going to fully commit because they didn't honor it when he didn't
put it on
do
repeat.
that.
Yeah. And I'm sure I'm going to get zero repercussions because YouTube doesn't do anything about it. Yeah. Unless I talk about COVID and then they say that I violate the things.
I wouldn't be totally surprised if the bot like takes the wrong lesson from it. Like it's like, like it's
Absolutely.
probably like, I see blurring. That means that this is inappropriate.
No, it wasn't even blurring. It was it was so
right.
I spent a bunch of time doing it. It's just a few shots, but still it takes work. It's just legs. It shows legs and belly and the shoulders, and that's it. It's like, and then of course there's all the sounds and the conversation because it's like it's specifically the if you've played The Witcher 2, it's the one in the Roses of Remembrance.
No, I've never played the first two yet.
Yeah, so
I'm that guy we talked about earlier that starts with the third one apparently.
Yeah, that's true. Don't worry, they made the third one. It's really weird.
The third one seems designed to be played on its own.
Right? Yeah, absolutely it does. Like I played the first two and then I started
was
the
aware
third
of the
game.
fact that
Like,
he had
what?
amnesia for the first two games, then got his memory back for the third game. So whatever it was no matter what, it was gonna be some kind of break.
Yeah,
in the continuity.
It feels very jarring
that character.
As well. It's Yennefer's fault. Because if Yennefer were introduced right at the beginning, well, she is. Wait a minute, what am I saying? Okay, it's not Yennefer's fault. It's my fault.
You're talking about 3 or the other games? Isn't Yennefer not in the first two games?
Yeah, she doesn't show up at all in the first game, and then she shows up in some weird cutscenes in the second game, and I think maybe Geralt talks about her later in the game. I don't remember. But in the third game, she shows up in the first vignette where Geralt famously is taking his bath in the bathtub, and but then she disappears for a little while, and it's a little bit confusing. I was a little bit confused with the start of The Witcher 3. I need to replay
Considering
it.
how important, like incredibly important to the franchise they are, like the entire storyline, it's really weird to think that there's 2 Witcher games that didn't have Yennefer and Ciri.
Oh yeah, they didn't even they barely mentioned Ciri in the second game.
Like out of nowhere, he gets his memory back in the third game. He's like, "Oh shit, I have a daughter. I should find her."
Yeah, absolutely.
Whereas like Ciri
like
is so important to the franchise. I think she basically becomes the POV character eventually in the books. Like she practically replaces Geralt if I've heard correctly. I haven't fucking gone through them yet, but I need to.
Yeah, it could be.
Like it's supposed to be really big. Like you watch the show, which is an adaptation of the books, and it's like literally split 3 ways between Geralt, Yennefer, and Ciri because they're all so important to the story. So it's so weird that CD Projekt Red decided to have a sequel, like games that are supposed to be sequels to the books, where Geralt loses his memory, and then Yennefer and Ciri just aren't there for 2 entire games.
I think I'm not going to spoil anything, but look at the side quests in The Witcher 3 of the main. I'm talking about the main side quests. So it's the main quest, but like it's not about the
side quest. Like a lot of the important side quests of 3 suddenly follow up on the stories of the first 2 games in certain ways, like the characters that were important to that version of Geralt that didn't know about the Yennefer and Ciri.
But now compare that first big side quest with that guy that beat his wife and had a kid that died. Spoiler. It's a little spoiler. Don't worry. Do you remember the one? I don't remember his name. He's like a fat king or a fat lord. The Baron,
Red Baron or something.
Do you see how the tone of that particular side quest, which I enjoyed a lot, but the tone is a little bit different. It's less focused on Geralt than basically the entirety of the rest of the game. It's less focused on Geralt than the characters.
A bunch of stuff just kind of happens around him, and he's confused by it, and then he meddles with forces he doth not understand, and then those forces also make things worse. And
I think
you make a choice without a lot of context, and you're like, "Oh fuck, what have I done?"
I think that side quest is a vestige of the design philosophy. I think it works well, and it's not a criticism in any way, because it's also not a criticism of the first two games, but it's a vestige of the design philosophy of the first two games. Because consistently, what happens in the first two games is that they preoccupy themselves with the stories of the characters in the world around Geralt, and Geralt just is there as a sort of a conduit for the player to make a choice and see where the story goes. But it's never about what Geralt wants or likes or does. And the second game in particular, where for some bizarre reason they decide to have Geralt be super skeptic of the plight of the non-humans. If you side with the non-humans, Geralt's like, "Oh, I don't even know what I'm doing. Ugh, why am I doing this?"
Yeah, that doesn't seem true to his character.
It is super not true to his character in the very game, because if you don't choose that, he's so before you make that choice, Geralt is sympathetic towards the non-humans, and if you don't choose to side with the non-humans, and just simplifying, Geralt will also express sympathy towards the non-humans. It's just sort of lip service, obviously, but still the tone is very weird. I think
it's weird because the whole point of his character is that he himself is an outsider to the humans.
Exactly. But he's just it's got to do with
he's
the
like
characters.
one of the only people that's allowed to like walk into elf territory without getting an arrow through the eye immediately.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but the first two games are they're about something other than Geralt, and that's why they didn't care really. I think they just didn't care about
collecting trading cards of women.
The first one is. The second one, I don't think so. I don't remember exactly.
But the first one absolutely never heard anything about the plot of the first game. All I've ever heard is that you collect trading cards of women. So that at some point that just starts to feel like it is the plot of that game. I know the second game is about maybe killing a king. It's right there in the title.
Oh, the king goes like fast. There's many.
It apparently has and it apparently has a divergent enough storyline that like half the the entire like final act of the game is a completely different chapter based on what a choice you made right beforehand. Yeah,
it's the third act that's completely different, or the second, depending on how you count them. You go to a different map, as far as I know.
Well, these days I'll get around to them. Maybe. There's just so much everything.
I mean, we
keep meaning to get around to Pillars 2, but Pillars 2 is so long.
It is very long.
And like I've potentially kicked that further down I've potentially kicked that even further down the line by starting my big like 1 year and like replay where I'm like, let's go back and play all of the Souls games again. It's like, well, now when am I going to get to Pillars? Because that's like maybe 6 months of just that game. Like fucking like Pillars of Eternity 1 was the first game I played the moment I switched over to 1 hour time 1 hour videos for RPGs.
Really?
I was like, finally I could finally get through this. And then that one still took over 100 episodes. It was like a third of a year, and the next one's supposed to be so much longer. And I'm like, oh my fucking god, it's so much. It's such a greedy game.
Yeah, the second game is even longer. Especially all the DLCs. The DLCs are good. I mean, one of them isn't, but the other ones they're good.
I'm always just so torn. Like I'm trying to get caught up on the Yakuza franchise so I can finally start playing the games around the time they come out instead of being like 4 games behind all the time. But then there's also like now it's like, when are you going to play all the Fallout games? When are you going to play? You only play Dragon Age 3. When are you going to play 1 and 2 before like 4 comes out? Maybe. When are you going to play BioShock 2 and Infinite? How
Dragon
about
Age 2 is short.
How about KOTOR 2? How about that second playthrough of Disco Elysium? Like it's a lot.
KOTOR 2 is surprisingly short. It took me like I edited out a little bit, but it took me 50. I think it was 57 episodes of half an hour each. So
when are you going to play the KOTOR MMO?
Don't do that. Don't do it.
I still play with the idea where I'm just like the most ambitious let's play I've ever done, 4-player let's play where we play as all 4 characters of one of the factions and we can mash all 4 storylines into one mega let's play that's in chronological order, where we group up to play all the content we can, but then every now and then we like all split up to like record our like time on the ship where we're hanging out with our crew members and proceeding with their storylines and the single player storylines.
That's an interesting idea.
Yeah, it'd be like a comprehensive Old Republic playthrough, but it would be a fucking monster.
But it's an MMO though. Is it good? Yeah. The story? Is it worth it?
I've heard from what I've heard, people really like the story, especially the original game when it came out. And I've heard rumors that as the expansions came out progressively, that the other storylines got less and less developed, and it became just like the primary Sith and primary Jedi storylines got all the attention or something. But like it is fully fully voiced storylines with like arcs and so on, and it's like, and they have different character dynamics, and each one has a party like a BioWare game would have. Like they desperately tried to make a proper BioWare game in the context of being an MMO, to the point of having like these characters with storylines. And I think you might even be able to make like choices that affect your interactions with your party members and like what they think of you and what direction that goes in, so you see different content. Maybe.
So this KOTOR that we're referring to, the MMO, to go back to a comment that Andrew made, that they put the remake in the title. I think this Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic, because it is called Star Wars: Knights of the Old Republic, I think this is the reason why they had to make the remake. Otherwise, people would just think that it's the MMO. Because
I don't know how many people even remember that there's an MMO.
That's true, but who plays MMOs, right? No, you guys play MMOs. I know, but I don't.
It's seemingly a get dead quick scheme for any company that attempts to do it.
Yeah, it's a great way to lose your company.
Yeah, it's a really fast way to just throw it all in the trash. And I get it. MMOs are like a really cool concept, but just it's like one of those things that it sounds good on paper, but fuck executing it. Like trying to make
Does
this.
Does it sound good on paper?
Yeah, it sounds really cool on paper.
You say surprisingly. I'm looking at the thing. You say surprisingly short. My Old Republic playthrough, my KOTOR playthrough, was 58 hours long, and when I look on how long to beat, the estimation of Old Republic of KOTOR 2 is longer than KOTOR 1 kernel. I don't think I'm going to play KOTOR 2 and think it's surprisingly short.
I thought it was,
especially if I play with those recommended like restored content mods that probably make it.
Played with. Yeah, you should absolutely play with them. They make the game make sense. But
the game makes sense.
Yeah, they cut out like huge parts of the ending. It's like you're getting to the. It's like imagine you're getting to the climax of a movie, but you kind of like seeing where everything is going, and then you just jump to the boss fight, and that's it. And the boss fight is like exit off of left screen with your partner pal, and be like, we're gonna come back again, aren't we? And you're just like, what just happened? And the last level is still as bad as it ever was. The last level is just basically an enormous level full of the same enemy duplicated over and over again. It's just boring.
I remember finishing KOTOR 2 and thinking that the protagonist of KOTOR 1 and 2 were going to like meet up and be in the same party, and that they were going to like be in KOTOR 3 together. And I thought that was so cool. And then there never was a KOTOR 3.
I thought that was the intention for the for the whole thing.
It'd be pretty cool if multiple characters you made in different games all teamed up in another RPG eventually.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of like how in every Dragon Age you play as a new character, and in Dragon Age 3 you actually get to meet Hawk, which is cool.
Oh,
that's just a really neat idea.
My Hawk was badass. I loved my Hawk. Actually, I stand corrected. It wasn't 57 episodes. It was 80 episodes, but Jeez. It was I edited out a few aspects of it, so yeah, I could see it. I could see it being. I don't think it is as big as the first game, though, because my first game took me 124.
Yeah, I don't know. It always some of it depends on like aspects of like how much time you kill by kind of doing the same things. Or how much you have to think about certain things, because it's the first time playing a game in the series versus the second time if they didn't change enough. Mm-hmm. And also just how much you just stand around talking about something.
Yeah, I went on some rambles, but I think the biggest thing is I edited out repetitive combat. Because there's a few levels.
I mean, if you edit out combat, you're gonna skip hours of like sometimes these games just fucking.
Yeah, but not more than one or two. Here's a combat
gauntlet for several floors of a dungeon. It'll take an hour and a half to get through.
Yeah, but I don't edit out like that. Like it's not more than 1 or 2 hours of boring combat. that I took out, because it's the 30-minute episode. Like, you can't. The games are more or less well paced, so it's not, you don't actually, But there's gauntlets that take like 40 minutes to beat that I beat in 10 minutes. But it only happens like a couple of times, maybe 4. It's really obvious as well, because the first game isn't very grindy, and the second game, I think it's because they want you to get to higher levels and just get all the cool abilities. The second game has a lot of combat where you just gain a bunch of experience, and without actually advancing in quests or anything. It's just killing a bunch of robots or killing a bunch of Sith. And I played the dark side, which was fun.
No matter what side you play as, you're always a mass murderer.
Oh yeah.
Classic video games.
There's no avoiding that. Oh, well, there is avoiding that. Fallout 1 you're playing right now is a game famous for being you can just never fight anyone if you want to. It's kind of tricky sometimes.
Yeah, I guess you have to sprint away every time random encounters happen.
Yeah, random encounters
where you're surrounded by like 8 dudes in every direction.
Yeah, that you absolutely have to run away from random encounters, or just die a bunch trying to never get random encounters. There's one skill that allows you.
Desperately needs a working quest log.
There's not that many quests.
Only like 1 in 5 quests you even get is in your log for some reason.
Yeah,
you just constantly pick up on threads, and it's like, well, I hope you knew to write that down. And it's like, there's like, you'll have one-off conversations you can't repeat with people and you're like, wait, where do I go? Where do I even go to do that quest? Like, I know, I'll open my quest log and nope, it's not on my quest log. It's like, isn't this maybe the main story? Like,
do you know that?
Where do I go?
If you notice when you open the Pip-Boy, there's like this button that's broken. There's map and there's I think status, and there's one button that is broken. That button was actually available in the demo of Fallout 1, and it said hints, I think. And the hints was supposed to be the journal, but they didn't have time to do it, so they didn't.
There's just some proper agony in there, like how you meet up with the Brotherhood of Steel, and one of them's just like, just like go south.
Oh yeah, I love it. That's amazing.
What the fuck do you mean by south?
Go die, basically. This. He's just because he died.
And if you go straight south from the Brotherhood of Steel, you will hit the edge of the map and have never found anything in the process.
Oh, you haven't found it? Oh, you need to.
Because they mean for you to go all the way to the opposite corner of the map, which would be more accurately described as southeast.
But did you find it or not?
Yeah, I know where to go.
Oh, okay.
But it was a nightmare because they send you to a nightmare of a place. But then also when you get there, you're like, well, I don't have any of the stuff I needed for this. Time to go back.
Oh,
and in my editing monstrosity, I had like some instances where it's like, fuck, I left something in my box or whatever, and I didn't bring the thing I needed. Time to go back again. Like, I had to reload and redo the trip like 4 times for different reasons, and it was just agony. And most of it's just deleted footage.
I've watched only I think 2 or 3 episodes at most. Because one thing I realized very soon was that what I know of Fallout 1 and 2 right now is, or the game for me, is just completely not at all the game that it is as a blind playthrough. And those games are the games that taught me to, like any RPG that I would play, I would start the gameplay for 10 or 15 hours and then start the game again after knowing how to play it. And Fallout.
It's a bummer that you can just make a character and be like, oh yeah, no, you picked the wrong skills.
Yep. Yeah.
It's an inherent flaw with the idea of building a character before you've played the game, which is how these games are made.
Yeah.
It's like, well, I don't know how good is throwing skill versus energy weapons versus other stuff.
You're absolutely right.
I apparently picked the you don't get to have VATS skill, but I didn't know that because it doesn't tell you what that really, because you don't get to know what those skills even mean. Mm-hmm. But also the game's like remarkably bad at conveying information on a regular like the go-to example usually is like games like Morrowind, where it's like, back in my day we didn't have a compass that we just followed blindly. You had to like pay attention to your surroundings and yeah, like Morrowind's like, oh yeah, go to that back of that district and take a right and that'll be the guy you need to meet up with, and you follow those directions and it works and you're like, oh shit.
Morrowind is incredible at doing it in comparison
Fallout
to
is trash.
Yes. Absolutely.
You get to like the boneyard, and they'll be like, yeah, there's like some people over on the west, and some people over in the east, and some people over in the south. It's like, cool, you listed all those things like they were comparable to each other, and it's like, wow, there's people over to the west and people over to the east. The quote unquote people to the south are a different fucking node on the map. Like they're not in the same environment.
It's
like
the Adytum or
boneyard.
Boneyard.
The boneyard area, they just casually mention the cathedral location alongside a list of people that are in the boneyards. But they're not in the boneyards. They're in a different node on the map. So you could spend like an hour running around the boneyards trying to find which stupid margin of the screen that's kind of green you can walk on to go to a different screen. And it's like,
especially if it's nighttime, it's difficult.
Oh yeah, I'm so frustrated by the way that towns work, because towns are like a series of screens, and you can't get a good idea of how they fit together, and it's not clear it's not clear enough like on the map or anything like that, like how many of the borders of your map are going to be transitions to other screens. I got like probably like a dozen hours of the game before I realized that there was a second screen worth of Shady Sands, where admittedly there's nothing there, but there's a second screen of Shady Sands. And I'm like, saying that, I didn't know that. I thought I was going to leave.
You're saying that I got probably 3 or 4 playthroughs into the game before I found that second screen of Shady Sands.
Yeah, it's like, what the fuck?
Your experience is definitely relatable. It's just that my remembrance of like
but you get the first time I beat the hub in the boneyard, and you're like, I can't get straight in my head how big this area is. Like,
it is really
have
big,
I been everywhere
and it doesn't
yet?
fit together.
I can't tell. Like,
it doesn't. Yeah.
How do these locations connect to each other? Can I get a combined map, please?
I think that's why people feel that they're such great games in a way, because they look back and they always remember playing the games over and over again and finding new things. Because you do find new things. You find, oh, there's a second screen of Shady Sands. It doesn't do much, but still. There's, oh, look, I can join the mafia bosses. Because, that's a thing that you can do in the second game.
Everyone in this town won't talk to me anymore because I made a choice somewhere that apparently was connected to everybody, but I don't know what it was.
Did you do the choice? I know you I know the last episode.
Oh, I pissed off.
I need to watch your Let's Play.
I pissed off I was doing the quest for the people in the hub where they were like, go kill this asshole. But
that's cool.
I had a disagreement with somebody else, and then I went on to do that quest. And then when I came back, they're like, "Fuck you, get out of my house!" And I'm like, I don't know what this is. I don't know what's happening. Why won't they get? Why won't they reward me for the? Why won't they reward me for the quest I did? It's like, oh, you had a different agreement. You had a different disagreement with a different person somewhere else in town, which means that you're shut out of all of this entire faction, which you don't know is a faction.
Yeah, that's exactly how it goes. I feel you. These games have they have broken quests. It's the kind of game that will just have quests that you can't finish because
I know, because I blackmailed the fucking sausage guy, being like, I'm gonna tell the cops if you don't pay me, and then you can't tell the cops if he doesn't pay you.
Yeah, but
you can't follow through on your own threat.
The broken quest is the preamble, so they have the broken quests, but the other quests that aren't broken, they're obtuse and sort of half hidden, and like it's like Dark Souls, but just with text instead. So you don't have to go give 30 humanity to the Sister of Quelaag, but you do have to do things in a certain order sometimes, and that's why there's a lot of variance.
There's entire chunks of the playthrough where I'm like, I just gonna like not use any of this footage for a few hours because it's me just trying to figure out where I can do anything next.
Yeah.
Like I've hit the point where I know you're feeling... I've been to the cathedral and it is not doable. It is completely not doable. I definitely need to come back later, but the problem is I need to find stuff to do elsewhere because you don't really know what loose ends there even are to cover. It's like, okay, who have I not pissed off yet? What dangling quests do I have left that are actually quests that are doable? Versus like ones I've failed, but also which ones have I just like forgotten about because it was just mentioned in an offhand thing, but not added to a quest log because the quest log doesn't really work. And
did you do the Brotherhood of Steel quests?
I'm starting that now because everything else is dried up. I can't do anything else.
Okay, so you're on the right track. No spoilers.
It's like nothing else works. It's just like deeply frustrating.
Because as you can imagine,
I've been to what I think are like the endings of the game's locations, and they're like unplayable. I'm like, stop fucking sending me there. Then what else should I do?
They kidnap you. That's so fun. But the thing is, if you have certain characters that can talk your way out, those areas actually work in a different way. So you talk your way out, and you can actually beat the game just with talking if you have a very
that kidnapping is so fucking rough because it is very
rough. Yeah,
like you'll have to see the video about it just so you can fully experience the extent of it. But like, I got so far. Like it's such a hopeless scenario, me ever getting out of that kidnapping, and yet I was able to get so far with it for an entire episode. Like I made it places, and so that makes it just all the more defeating when I ultimately have to like give up, because it's like it's not possible. I cannot.
It is really difficult. Yeah,
my character cannot in any way survive or escape that kidnapping, but like it's an entire zone, and like the way that I experience it is only experienceable in the context of getting kidnapped, and there's entire conversations that only happen when you're kidnapped. So like
that's true,
because there's so much story content, it feels inherently wrong
have to show it,
to reload your save. Like,
well, but you're gonna have to though.
Yeah, but I mean, like when you just like dead end or something, or you're just like, oh well, that didn't work out, and like you fail or game over or something, you're like, okay, time to load back my save and do something else, I guess, because that's not going to work out. But in this one, you can get so invested for so long and have all these like story interactions and learn about the world, and then you have to like load back to a version of your character that knows none of that stuff and just keep going. Like it feels horrible.
What I do is when I get kidnapped. Whenever it happens that I get kidnapped, because some characters do get kidnapped, others don't. It's a skill check, if I remember correctly. But when I do get kidnapped, I just go for the ending where you tell the super interesting character in that particular place where you go get kidnapped to. I tell them where your vault is. Did you not do that?
Oh, the betrayal.
You can do that. Yeah.
No, I didn't betray my vault because it's the only linchpin holding my character together. Don't worry. It motivates everything that he does. So it's like it doesn't make sense to do that.
If you do that, you need to agree with him. Basically, you just need to say, "Oh yeah, you make a good point. Here it goes. Here's the vault." So I don't know. Yeah, it didn't miss out on much. But
there
that's
are
what
so many parts of the game that one shot me.
Mm-hmm.
So it's such it's like trying to play a way slower and clunkier version of that one Elex.
Mm-hmm.
That game where like 90% of the game just kills you instantly, and you have to find the one piece of playable content. It's like that, but like way clunkier and slower because it's Fallout, the original Fallout, and so you have to like you're simultaneously fighting this like incredibly obtuse like interface, and you're trying to figure out how to do things. And one of the things that really trips me up about Fallout is that every time you interact with basically anything that you think would involve using your skills, you have to actually like go out and manually use your skills, because like
skill decks,
your character won't be like, oh yes, I will use my computer skill when you click on a computer. It's like, no, it's computer dumb stupid blinky lights whatever, and then you're like, oh
6.
Sorry, I forgot
7.
to go to
7.
Yeah, at that point you're like, whoops, I forgot to specifically ask my character to use the computer skill on computers. It's like, what? I'm just like, what's the use case? Who is that for? What?
That's true.
Why would you design it in a way where interacting with computers doesn't use your computer skill? Like
the skill.
What is the point? What is the point of the non-computer skill interaction? What is that accomplishing? Who is that for?
It does happen that there are some computers that have different interactions depending on whether you're using your computer skill or not.
But what does that even mean? What does that even mean in the universe for the character? Like, I just like
it means you're not trying to.
I'm gonna
hack
blindly mash buttons even though I'm good at computers or something. Like, what the?
I think it means you're not hacking the computer. So it's like you're not doing the hacking matrix.
I'm about ready to fucking beat this game and then find out at the end that the whole time every time I threw a weapon, I wasn't actually using my throwing skill, because you're supposed to use your throwing skill when you want to throw the weapon.
No, you're using
like that's the level of obtuseness. Like when I use a gun, the game knows I want to use my gun, and I don't have to be like, oh, I would like to use my small gun skill, please, and not just like use my tongue or whatever. But when you use a computer, like, are you sure you want to use your computer skill? Well, you gotta like ask us nicely and go through 7 menus instead of just like, you can reading the interaction with the computer as you wanted to use a computer with your computer skill.
I'll give you a tip. You might know it already. You can use your number keys.
I stumbled upon F1 where it says a bunch of hotkeys.
Yeah. Oh, but didn't I tell you? Oh,
but there's just so much of the game that
Yeah.
just contextually should know what you mean. And that's one of the biggest ones is like, I'm using a computer. Why do I have to tell you I'm using a computer? You know I'm using a computer. What the fuck?
The Fallout is the first RPG in so many ways. It's the first game that did what it does. Like, what came before is not comparable. Maybe like I was gonna say maybe Might and Magic is a little bit like that, but it isn't. Might and Magic is basically combat a lot of the time and just dialogue.
Okay, let's double check this because I always forget. Oh yeah, Baldur's Gate came out the next year, huh?
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty tight though. They were probably already working on it, right? Although games were made way faster back then.
As far as I know, the original. So by the time Fallout was released, they were already working on it as Baldur's Gate is today. But when they were developing Fallout, Baldur's Gate was going to be a real-time strategy game set in the Dungeons and Dragons game. Real-time with pause strategy, I should say.
Yeah.
And then they saw the success that Fallout was having, and they were like, okay, well, let's switch this game to a role-playing game. And as far as I know,
the original two Fallouts could probably use remakes more than almost any game ever made.
Well, but the thing is, if
just
they
for
do...
really basic elements, like, hey, guess what? What if Ian had an inventory screen?
But if they do, the thing is, what the remakes are gonna ruin them because they're supposed to be games that are replicating the tabletop feel of playing a
like
game.
it would desperately need to be a really specific person to man that kind of project.
Yeah,
you'd basically have to be like, hey, let's hand this off to like one of those indie CRPG developers, not even anybody AAA.
Have you checked out Solasta or seen anything?
So I don't think anyone will fight me on the idea that like it's just so fucking weird. Like
it is,
certain
absolutely.
skills just need to work contextually on their own. And
you're
like,
absolutely right.
Hey, maybe NPCs should look different from people that aren't interactive in some way in these towns of hundreds of identical people. That's fucking agony. Like maybe your party members, when you get ambushed by a bunch of like greasers, maybe Ian shouldn't look the same as all of the greasers. And then when you aim your gun, they're also all red.
There's two things about that. In Fallout 2, your allies do show up as green, but in Fallout 1, there's a perk that allows you to tell friend from foe in the comments.
Spend a level up on it. What the fuck?
It's funny,
but also like there should be a unique character model for every like noticeable NPC that you want to talk to. They should at least look different from they should at least have a different pool of character models for important people versus all the random crowd members that just say the same thing at you. And like party members should have an inventory screen. You shouldn't have to like throw random items at them, hope they use them, be confused why they aren't using them, and then also have to like steal items back apparently from them if you want to take items from them.
They fixed that in Fallout 2. Fallout 2 fixes some things. It allows you. Fallout 2 specifically does allow you to interact with the companion inventory, tell them what to do under certain circumstances. It's a little bit better.
Let's remake Demon's Souls for some reason. It's like, no, remake fucking Fallout 1.
Absolutely.
and authentically remake Fallout 1. Don't fuck up the parts of it that are good.
First person,
but
like
there's so many basic elements that just don't really work that should work better.
Like even things I like Fallout 1 is very
I met the green-haired character, like party member, and I'm like, this entire town is just her.
Yeah.
What the fuck?
I
was so lucky that I noticed she existed.
How
many party members have I missed? I spent
years without finding her. I spent years without finding most of the companions. This is like they
just look like a random. Just a random dude that looks like everyone else.
Oh, it's him. I don't remember him then. Who is he? I forget him.
Who's Ian?
No, I know Ian. I don't remember the green-haired dude. I thought he was her.
A green-haired lady.
Oh, it's okay. I know who she is.
Yeah. She's like in the library full of entirely that character model over and over again. And you're like, what?
The thing about, I think that in terms of a remake, though, Fallout is such a specific fruit of its time that, because it's so connected to the 2D aspect of it, right? It's a game that has a certain feel to it that is clunky for sure, but I don't think
you could remake Fallout in like the Diablo 2 raster graphics. You don't gotta 3D it. You can be as authentic as you want.
Yeah.
But like, just imagine the beautiful world where you don't have to click that down arrow 75 times every time you open your inventory.
I know.
Because it only shows like 4 items and they're in whatever the fuck order it feels like. And when you try to pick up an item or sell it or buy it or whatever, and it like doesn't work for some reason, it looks like it worked because it's gone. But what it actually did is it put it on the bottom of the list.
Or the bottom.
It's like, Jesus Christ, game, stop it.
Doesn't the scroll wheel work? I thought it did.
No.
Because at the fix-it, it didn't install the fix-it.
I don't think it does. I think you have to keep clicking.
Yeah. It didn't. Scroll wheels didn't exist.
When you
back
pick
then.
stuff up, it won't let you pick it up, but it won't tell you why you can't pick it up, and you don't know how much it weighs, and you don't know how, and it won't show your equip load maximum versus current on that screen, or how much the thing that you're trying to pick up weighs. So you just gotta like find a box and switch out random items, and just like hope you can figure out how much the thing weighs.
You can tell how much from the inventory. You need to use the inspect button.
I'm also at a point in my playthrough where Ian has 3 different guns that all have ammo, and they're all within his like things that he would use, and he's punching people, and I can't make him stop.
That sounds about right.
He just won't use any of his guns, or even sometimes not even his knife, and I'm like, why is he like this? Please.
If you ever play Fallout 2, you're gonna be begging your companions to use their fists because it's even worse. Especially Sulik.
This game fights you.
Oh yeah. They're old games are like that. It's not. It's just RPGs are like this. It's such an adventure of figuring out what the game wants you to do, as well as figuring out finding out the game. I think what I was gonna say about the 2D aspect of it is that it's such an intrinsic part of the game, but on other sides, it's so ambitious. Fallout 1 is, like, for example, the Ask Me About function, where you can literally type in
anything,
and if you know the words that they have answers for, it's kind of interesting. You can ask about towns, you can ask about characters, but of course, as a blind playthrough,
like the time in Zero Escape where we had a weird fourth wall break because we asked about like a really specific phone number, and it actually had like answers.
Yeah, that's but like the other thing is, for example, the fact that you can use your skills on any item or anything in the world. Like, for example, rocks. You can use your science skill in rocks. It doesn't do anything, but if the programmers actually program the rocks to do something, the engine supports it. And one of the early things that happens, you probably didn't do it, I don't think you did it, is that you can use your demolition skill on a beam in the Rad Scorpion cave and bring the cave down. Is it your demolition skill? No, it's you can use.
Is there a demolition skill?
No. It's you can apply the explosives item to a beam, and then the cave collapses. So you can use items as well as skills. It's so ambitious on so many levels.
I'm amused that Fallout, like the act of doing a Let's Play of Fallout, is essentially like a form of shared pain in a way akin to playing a Souls game, where like the audience is just there to watch you deal with all the bullshit, and like they know that. Like they're like, oh yep, he did the thing that I knew he was going to do, which is that he's going to try to use a dynamite. He's going to blow himself up because it's so fucking hard to light and place a dynamite stick in the time allotted.
Well, you're like,
I don't want to wait that long. I'll just set it to 10 seconds. All I have to do is click light and then drop it, right? Then you're like, how do I do it? Oh, there it goes.
Yeah.
The wasteland and the vault was surely doomed, or whatever the fuck. It's a skeleton.
Ron Perlman is a pearl of a man. Is
that Ron Perlman?
Yeah. That's the voice. That's the voice. The narrator of the game.
He's been around forever. He's so bad in the Monster Hunter movie.
Oh yeah.
I'm gonna talk about that. It's gonna be a video. Spoilers.
What you're feeling with Fallout and the way you're talking about it vindicates me in how I feel when I did my 4 Let's Plays of Fallout 1 and 2.
God,
because there are Let's Plays.
Four Let's Plays?
I did 2 Let's Plays of each.
Jesus.
And so, yeah.
I guess that's me and Dark Souls games, though.
Yeah, it's basically that. I was much better on the second Let's Plays of each game because those were some of the games that I first did a Let's Play of, and I know them intimately. And even still, they're not fun Let's Plays to make. They're very nerve-wracking, and because they're difficult games if you get yourself into certain amounts of trouble to begin with. But they're also, the act of remembering all the details is tiring because I know them, but it's like remembering and commentating all at the same time. And so I remember early in my streams, somebody asking me like simple questions like, what's your favorite Let's Play that you made? Or what's your favorite game to Let's Play or something like that. And I was like, not Fallout, even though they're my favorite games, because they're nerve-wracking. It's kind of interesting to think about it because it's just such there's such a journey of exploration even after these many years. Because I finished those games like easily a dozen times each, and it's a challenge every time. But it's a journey of it's a journey of discovery. I think every time for me, even still. And so for you, it's just blind, obviously. So you're not alone. What you're saying, you're not. What I want you to take away from what I'm saying here is that what you're saying is absolutely true. You're totally correct, and everybody knows that. It's just that we sort of look past it.
There's never a consensus. There's always like, we're gonna play the worst Sonic game ever released, and everyone agrees, and then all the people that disagree are there. You're like, all right, well, here we go. You can play the most obtuse nightmare of a game, and that's everyone knows is this obtuse mess, and then there'll always be that guy's like, just fucking get good, noob.
I don't know. I think I've played like 0 of the games you guys just talked about for the past like
hour,
30 minutes.
Andrew playing Fall 1.
I could just delete your track.
Yeah. I was like sitting there the whole time. I was like, I don't think I have any reference to what's going on. I don't know what any of these.
Yeah,
if you
we gotta let you go so we can set up for Final Fantasy.
Yeah. If Andrew played Fall 1,
just
rage would be enormous.
I don't think so. I think it would just bore me. It's not. They're like so devoid of the thing I look for when I play a game that like I would probably just give up like I did with New Vegas like 7 times, is because it's just it doesn't appeal to me in the way that the core audience is looking for.
Man, when I finally play New Vegas, it's going to be a blind playthrough, and not because I didn't play it before, but because it's from that era where I played video games distracted. I played video games the way my audience does, like listening to YouTube videos and hunting achievements and shit. And it's like, I can't tell you what ending I got. That's kind of a big deal. Like, there's a bunch of different factions to ally with. Like, I watch like videos about New Vegas, and I'm like, I don't know what the fuck they're talking about. All I remember is the guy shoots you, and there's the evil Legion people, and there's a New Vegas. But I don't remember any plot beyond that.
You're gonna have so much fun
at all. It's so remarkable how
good.
little I remember. Meanwhile, I played 3 so many times.
So far for me, it's mostly just been like, what? You said I can't do this? Watch me. And just like barreling through and breaking it in any way I can, or like, just like showing up to places and it's like, wow, these people look like they're kind of doing something. I guess I'm just gonna kill them all and goodbye. Just like move on and just. It's like it's these games just I don't know.
I think I'm admittedly burned out a little bit. I think I was burned out by the time New Vegas came out because I played 3 so much at the time. Just over and over again.
Yeah, I think 3 set me up for a lot of failure.
I'm getting comments that are telling me that I'm playing the game like you in Fallout 1. And the way that you just end up shooting everybody all the time. But it's not because of choice, but just because I'm just role-playing a character. Yeah.
Yeah, it's the character you make.
I made an Andrew, essentially. Because my character has maxed out intelligence, but low strength and low charisma. And he also has he has no speech skill and no lockpicking skill. So because my idea was like, I'm frustrated by how it's so always the correct answer to just make a high lockpicking, high hacking, high speech character in every Bethesda game and every Fallout game and every BioWare game and so on. And
so much more than those. Fallout is like the archetype of that.
In all those games, you just like automatically win at the game by just having the skill to solve every problem and nothing ever. So I was like, what? I wanted to see what a playthrough looks like when you don't have those skills automatically, because then you actually have to engage with like the wider problems. And this was somewhat encouraged by Fallout 3, as much as it gets demonized. Like, it does have functioning, interesting mechanics that come from making different characters. Yeah. And in my very, very abridged and incomplete Fallout 3 playthrough that I did for Patreon at one point, what happened is my character was too stupid to activate the Metaton bomb. And I was going to try, I was hired to blow up Metaton, but I couldn't do it because he was not smart. And so what I had to do is I had to ask around the bar, and I found the drug dealer guy. I'm like, oh, there's a drug dealer guy. I didn't even know this guy was here because I never needed him before. And so you meet him in like the water treatment plant of Metaton at night, and then he'll give you the drugs and you can buy them. But then also I'm like, hang on a minute, I can do whatever I'm gonna blow this place up anyway. What do I have, morals or something? So right after I bought the drugs from him, as he's walking out, I shot him in the back of the head and took all my money back, and also everything else that he had, and took all of his shit. Then took the brain drugs to be smart, and then blew up Metaton. And it's like,
yeah, see?
That's pretty. I'm like, this is cool. I liked how this came from a limitation in my character. Again, I got an interesting thing where I did engage with a bunch of mechanics I didn't even have to acknowledge before, because my character would just cheat at the world basically. So I was looking for that kind of experience. But mostly what happens is my character is a huge dick and nobody likes him, and he'll say something kind of bristly and kind of rude, and they'll immediately start shooting him, and then I'll win the fight, and then that entire faction or storyline is over. Just over and over again. Like I've heard people talk, like, hype up the rivalry between like the two factions of like the first major town, and who you're going to side with, and maybe the town's actually better if you side with the shittier person, and blah blah blah, and there's all these side characters tied into this, and it's like,
spoiler alert, the town isn't better if you side with the shittier person.
Like I met with Gizmo and I was kind of rude, and he just started shooting me. And so I killed him, and that was the end of the entire town storyline. And also the other guy hated me because I didn't just kill him the cop way by getting evidence. So everybody hated me, and I was kicked out of Junktown. And I'm like, wow, I was only here for like half an hour.
I've been there. There's so many quests there as well.
Yeah,
that's literally been my Fallout New Vegas.
Don't worry, it's I've been there. I've played through to the end of the game with a character where that happened. I mean, sort of. I mean, it was kind of, it's complicated. Sometimes I forget how
people hate me.
It's
the funny thing is, the funny thing is the things that I say just aren't that bad. They're not on the level of the response that they get.
You would imagine people are a little bit more lenient. Like I
would imagine that the average person in the wasteland is way ruder than me because it's the wasteland. Yeah. But I say one snooty thing and they start murdering me, and I'm like, wow, thin skins around here, huh?
Yeah, I had that the first time I met the Legion, where I was like, wow, this seems kind of like stupid. I don't want to partake in it. He's like, then you must die. He's like, I don't think this was a good call for you at all.
There as well.
I would not say that.
Like, there as well.
Yeah. But some people just like actively look to fight you, and it's weird. Like there's this, like, again, like I've always said, when you are a player in a world, you are essentially a god in that world. So when people show up and just like start to roughhouse you, you're like, what are you doing? Like, I'm here to engage with you. I'm being benevolent. Like, maybe you should back the fuck up. And so they're like, no, we're gonna kill you. It's like, you just wipe them from the planet.
RPGs
you're like,
where you feel like a real person.
It's like, what do you want from me? I'm either going to obliterate you or pretend to care about what you're saying long enough to obliterate you later. But like, when they get immediately aggressive, it's like, all right, I guess you didn't want me to interact with your story.
It's why Pathologic and Disco Elysium are so good, because like in Disco Elysium, you can't just magically solve all your problems in an instant because you're just like so protagonisty. And like in Pathologic, when you have to like give somebody resources for some reason, you're like, oh, do I want to give those up? Oh, fuck, what if I need those? Whereas every other game ever, it's like, please, my entire family, our entire lineage is at stake, and we're all suffering for the whatever the fuck reason. And it's like, oh, man,
I guess I can help if I really want to. It's a whole 100 credits though, and I have 300,000. It's like, what the like adventuring is apparently like the Jeff Bezos job, where you're like a fucking billionaire and the entire economy makes no sense immediately. And I'm not even talking about games where you can craft like Skyrim, but just like BioWare games where you just do the relatively shallow number of missions and there's no other shit you can do to like manipulate money. And you still have an impossible amount of money. And whenever any NPC brings up money, it's like, that's the scale people are on outside of me?
I think that's
I don't understand.
I think that's a mistake.
Weird.
That's a mistake of the game developer. Obviously, it's a mistake. I think, but
it's like genre wide.
It's just a matter of numbers. It's a matter of numbers.
Every game except Pathologic, where
you're
imagine, like, fuck.
Imagine in Mass Effect,
I need that
instead
loaf
of the
of
weapons,
bread. It'll make me live for 10 more minutes.
Because imagine in Mass Effect, if the weapons, instead of costing 90,000 that you're gonna spend the whole playthrough to collect, they cost like 1,000.
On every playthrough of Mass Effect 1, I hit the cap on money.
And also, you never bought any items, which was maybe you did actually. I didn't. I don't buy items in RPGs.
It just completely caps. You run out of number. It caps out. And I'm like, why? This game's not even long.
We don't have the technology.
It's
the first game's really short.
One of like the first people you meet in New Vegas is like an ex-scavenger, and he's like, oh, it wasn't a very lucrative career or whatever. But like less than 24 hours of me being out in the wasteland, I already have like quadruple the money he's ever seen in his life. I have like an arsenal, like a literal arsenal of weapons. And it's like, I don't know what you did, but you fucking sucked at this. Like, I don't even remember who I am, and I somehow managed to amass more weapons than the average military.
That's because
one of the funniest things about my Fallout 1 playthrough is I'm low strength, so I can only hold like 4 items.
Yeah, that was a decision.
I got metal armor, and that metal armor is like 50% of my carry load.
Yep.
Strength is like the only thing I put. Strength and like perception are the only important skills.
It's so fucking funny.
Like I need to be able to hold stuff and shoot stuff, and that's it. Nothing else matters.
In Fallout, the shooting is dependent on perception. That's for your to hit chance, but agility is also very important because that's for your action points or for your speed.
I don't need action points or speed.
Yeah, because you can shoot. Like, for example, if you have 9 action points and you use 3 action points to shoot, you can shoot 3 times in a turn. If you have 8 action points, you can only shoot twice. And if you have 4, you can only shoot once. You know what I mean, right?
Oh, you're talking about like OG Fallout.
Yeah, turn-based.
Oh, okay.
It's really difficult.
I was thinking of like, I was like the 3D one. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. Yeah.
Yeah, I rarely use VATS. VATS is like a thing I forget exists half the time because it's like, why? I can just headshot anything with any gun. Just boop, 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 done. All right, bye. Like,
but
Jesus, we are so over time that I'm genuinely considering, like, should I make this 2 episodes? Should I find a split point? Oh God,
you can make one, split it between RPGs, and
we're coming up on 3.5 hours.
Let's cut it here. Let's cut it here, and it's just one. Let's cut it here.
Andrew needs to let his dog pee everywhere.
Go Shadow, pee.
Unless he just quietly left while we were talking about Fallout, it's entirely possible. He was silent for like an hour.
I should have probably taken him out if I knew that was going to be a conversation.
Go.
All right. See you guys next time. Send your questions, dialogchoicespodcast@gmail.com. Maybe I'll even answer them next episode.
We promise the email's real.
I would have it is real, if you spell it correctly.
Yes.
If you
everybody's spelling it
the way
wrong
the show is spelled. If you there might, who knows?
Yeah. I mean,
does email give you an error message if the address doesn't exist at all?
Yeah, it does.
Okay. Well, see you guys next time.
Okay.
Bye.
Goodbye.